All right, today we're making a lemon, poppy seed, and blueberry sourdough loaf that was inspired by Swati at Zesty South Indian Kitchen. We're going to start off with 140 grams of active starter. So this was fed last night. To this, we're going to add 320 grams of water and kind of mix those together, dissolving the starter, adding just about 50 grams of sugar, mixing once again, and now we're going to add our flour. I'm doing 425 grams of all-purpose flour. I'm using locally grown and milled Bluebird, and I'm going to use my Danish dough whisk to combine those. So just combining until it forms a dough ball, and we'll cover this and let it rest for about 30 minutes to autolyse. In the meantime, I'm going to zest 3 lemons. This should give me around 10 grams of lemon zest. After that first 30 minutes of autolyse, I'm going to go ahead and add my 9 grams of salt, my lemon zest, 16 grams of poppy seeds, and I've decided to add in 150 grams of fresh blueberries. I imagine you could use frozen. And then we're going to do some stretch and folds here. So just trying to combine everything really well. I'm just grabbing the edge of the dough, kind of folding it over on itself. And I'm using wet hands so that the dough doesn't stick to my fingers. We'll cover this and let it rest. And then about every 30 minutes or so, we will do more stretch and folds. So this takes place of kneading the dough, just pulling it up, stretching it, and folding it over on itself. We'll do a series of stretch and folds every 30 or so minutes for about 2 hours, and then 2 more stretch and folds spaced an hour apart. After a bulk ferment, which mine took 4 hours, I'm going to go ahead and scrape my dough out onto a clean, dry countertop. Notice it's not floured. I don't want to change the hydration of this dough. Now I use damp hands and I stretch my dough out into about a rectangle shape. And I'm going to go ahead and shape my loaf. And I do kind of this lace-up method. You'll find what works for you. This is just kind of what I've come up with. Once I get to the end, I roll that dough up, forming my boule. And then I use that dry countertop there to add some friction so I can really pull on that loaf and create a nice tight skin on top. I'm dusting my banneton with some rice flour. And I'll go ahead and dust my loaf as well. Rice flour doesn't get absorbed into the dough, so it doesn't change the hydration. So it's really good for using for dusting. Place that smooth side down into the banneton. Add a little bit more rice flour so it doesn't stick to anything on top. And then I'm going to place that banneton inside a plastic bag, and this will go in my fridge overnight. So the next morning, I've preheated my oven to about 500 degrees with my Dutch oven inside of it. And my oven, it takes about 45 minutes to an hour to preheat that Dutch oven. I use a piece of parchment paper and invert my dough on top of it. You can choose to dust off that rice flour if you want, or you can leave it on there. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and score this loaf, just using a razor blade and a lame. I'm going to carefully place that dough inside my very hot Dutch oven and douse it with a little bit of water. Put the lid back on, and that's going to go in that hot oven. I will reduce the temperature to about 450 degrees. Goes in there for 25 minutes. Removing the lid, you can see that the dough did spring up. It's not quite done yet. So it'll go back in the oven with the lid off for another 25 minutes. And this is now completely baked, and I'll go ahead and peel that parchment paper off. The crust is browned up nicely. It has a hollow sound when tapped on the bottom. We're going to let this cool for at least an hour. I'll go ahead and cut that open so you can see the crumb. And there you have it, a nice beautiful loaf. It is divine, probably my favorite bread right now.